Welcome to Reinventing Broadcast, where AI meets content. Hosted by Ben Anchor. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Broadcast Media Inside Track, episode 25, and I'm joined by Paul Markham. Hello, Paul.
Hello, how are you?
Not too bad. It's been a while since I've had you on the show, but do you want to explain a bit about yourself and what you do to the listeners?
So, I've spent 25, 27 years in the broadcast industry. I started off in radio. I did some stuff with DAB and invented some software processes and software systems that we used in commercial radio 25 years ago. And we did things there like software as a service and using the internet for distribution of audio long before they were sort of adopted in a wider context. So that's why I say we invented things. We kind of took ideas that were going and just tried to do stuff with them. And the great thing about radio, certainly back then, was, we didn't have any money. And that doesn't sound like a great thing, but it means that you have to be very creative with how you get things done and how you do. And obviously the cost discipline is very high. And so we found that I found that quite an innovative space to work. And I did find when I went to work initially on BBC iPlayer for Red Bee Media, so the original BBC iPlayer, it was quite a different world. It felt like there was a lot of money being spent and a lot going on, and that was quite exciting in its own way. But it made me think, really focused the mind on where things were going. So I worked at Red Bee Media for a few years and did iPlayer, and then moved into Access Services and did
Yes.
ran the subtitling platform team. So we did a lot of, it's all about the technology and ultimately the software we started building for that. And again, it's about this idea actually that when you have less data, just like in radio, you have less data to deal with. And that gives you an early in on the innovation and on the doing stuff, as it was then with cloud, and then ultimately moving into AI as well. And we'll come back to that, I think, in a second. But I think since then I've done a bit of working with Discovery back in the pandemic years of doing some distribution architecture and other stuff for the Olympics. So some enabling architecture for Olympics to bring media feeds back and get them out to the right places, and incredibly complex stuff. And then more recently been working with Arkiva and helping them to move into the world of cloud. And so I run Cloud Native Media, which is a fantastic event that we have every so often and in London, and we have private groups and other things going on. We've come on a journey talking about media and cloud over the last few years, and it's been an absolutely fascinating one. And we've had some talks about AI as well, which I think we're going to go into a little bit today.
Yeah, because I've known you quite a few years now. So back in those Red Bee days, I always saw you as like the architect of access services, right? And like when we was there, cloud was the big thing, but now like AI is the big thing, and like sort of speech to text. What's happening in that world right now, Paul?
So I think it's very interesting because speech to text was one of probably the earliest use case of what we call AI in TV and media, and it was something that was talked about. I mean, I remember when I started there just over 10 years ago. We started talking about using speech to text. So for those that don't know, for a very long time, the way that live subtitling and to a certain degree non-live recorded subtitling, the way it's been done in places like Red Bee is what they call re-speaking. So you have someone who's talking into a microphone, re-speaking the program audio to a speech recognition engine that's trained to their voice. Now, I say a speech recognition engine because this approach goes right back to about 2000 or so, when it wasn't what we'd call AI today. It was a speech, old school speech recognition engine that you had to train to your voice for voice recognition. It might have used some AI principles, but it wasn't anything like the kind of AI we talk about today. And what was interesting about 10 years ago was we started to talk about this real time AI driven speech to text with no, unattended, as it were, because that's what you need for live, right?
Yeah.
And what was interesting at the time was a lot of people could see it was sort of working, but the accuracy rate was bad enough that professional subtitlers would just sort of go, well, that's just a waste of time, because we'll spend as much time correcting the output of that thing as we will doing it the way we know how. And so at that point, it wasn't worth it. And I remember the conversations, because um, there was often a conversation around, well, when will it work? How long do you think it'll take for this to be viable?
Yeah.
And people used to say, what, 15, 20 years, right? Um, and I guess one of the things that surprised everyone. So we think about 10 years ago, we're talking about autumn 2015, when I think this stuff was under discussion, and see people saying, well, this speech recognition is getting better.
Yeah.
When is that going to be usable? And people were saying, well, 10, 15, 20 years. But actually, it happened within 5. And
Yeah.
and although, I know there'll be professional subtitlers watching who are going, gritting their teeth and going, oh, it's still not that good. Well, it still isn't that good. But it depends on the content, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
if the panel show always used to be the sort of high mark of, this is really hard because you've got jokes that you can't really misrepresent and carry the meaning of. You've got people talking over each other. You've got laughter in the background. You've got lots of stuff going on. So the have I got news for you style sort of panel show. And then, of course, you've got the other challenging content is things like question time. So political debates where actually, if you get it wrong, you can, if you're a broadcaster, you can be accused of bias and all of the rest of it. So those sorts of content are still really hard, and I wouldn't entrust them to an AI to do the speech to text. But for most other things, actually, when you're using the Speechmatics engine, which I know that most providers are, um, if you're using the Speechmatic engine, it doesn't have really a problem with accents anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a problem with strange vocabulary. You can precede it if if for a sporting event, for example, and there's lots of complicated names in there. You can precede it with all of that, and it's a pretty good product, right? And everyone's always talks about YouTube and how the automated subtitles on YouTube are terrible, and yes, they are still terrible, but that is not the automated subtitles on YouTube are not state of the art when it comes to speech to text. They really aren't.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who's used ChatGPT with a microphone can vouch, or just got the OpenAI Whisper package, for example, and tried that. They know that the stuff, whatever Google's using for YouTube, it's really not very good.
Yeah.
So I think we've seen it get better and better, and also I think that the other conclusion that I would bring, Ben, is the pace of that change in that one space as really was much faster than people expected. Now, of course, since 2015, we've had an enormous amount of hype around AI and what it can do and what it can't do, and lots of two-bit opinions from lots of people online. And I'm interested to see whether, so there's I guess there's two schools of thought around that. One of them is that the hype is totally overblown and it's a bubble that's just going to burst because it's so overstated. And I guess the other school of thought is that it is hype, but actually it's not the technology that's hyped, right? The technology is moving really, really fast and is really good, but it's the kind of financial benefit that's been hyped, right? And this
Yeah.
is what my kind of take on it, Ben, is um, the big AI companies are raising huge amounts of money on the promise that they're going to
Yeah.
basically cut jobs and make people billionaires. And I think we could all say with a certain degree of confidence that that's probably not how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
Um,
They want the investment money, right? The
I mean,
CEOs of big tech are bigging it up. We're going to deliver this in 2 years. But when
yeah,
you
yeah.
speak to 100 experts, they're like, we think it's going to be more like 10 years.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, it's not that the AI isn't developing fast, because it is. It's that it's developing much faster than our ability to make effective use of it,
Yeah.
right? And if you talk to most people about most reasonably technical people about AI, they'll sort of suck their teeth probably and start talking about hallucinations and all sorts of other terrible things going on, how you can't rely on it, and all of these things are true, right?
Yeah.
They are. I guess the thing is, what we haven't, what they don't recognize is that just because all of those things are true, it doesn't mean that it's not useful. And finding it useful is the key, right? Finding
Yeah.
where it can be useful and how it can help us is the most important part.
It's the pain points, right? So
Yeah,
we've gone through the speech to text, but what are the other pain points in broadcast? I can think like maybe compliance, metadata tagging, deep
so
archive
yeah, I
stuff.
mean, I think metadata, real time metadata is a fascinating area. I think it's 12 labs who've one vendor who's built a product around that. Um, So, example for people who don't know what I'm talking about, you might have a sporting event. It might be a long sporting event with several, like let's say it's an athletics meet. You've got several races, different competitors. You've got commentary, probably. You've got all of these things, and you can feed it into your semantic metadata generator, and that will tell you who is on who is on screen at which time,
Yeah.
who won the race, where it is, what the background, and what the different shots are, all kinds of time-based detail about what the content is. So I mean, if you took it to a news report, that could be, it could automatically tag where the shot is, who the interviewee is, what are they saying. So there's a bit of speech to text in there as well, but
Yeah.
equally it's much more than that because it can describe what's going on for you, and that can be really useful from an editorial perspective. If, for example, you just want that 10-second clip of footage from 2 hours of live stream or something like that, where you just want a little bit of it, and you
Yeah.
instead of having to trawl through the whole thing to find it, you can just be searching for it semantically, either with text, with typing, or with voice. You can say, you could ultimately be saying to the machine, give me that clip of whoever it was that when they talked about, and it can be really proper semantic search as well. So you don't have to get the exact words right. It's not it's not like a crude old school search that you might have done when you search a Word document or something. It's proper semantic search, so it will know
Yeah.
what you're talking about and return the relevant clip. And obviously, with all of these things, it needs to work pretty well most of the time, right? And so
Yeah.
there's a certain threshold, isn't there, when people have a tolerance for failure. But if the tolerance, if the failure goes too high, then people abandon it and go, it's not worth doing. So if it's getting it 95% right, let's say, I'm just making that number up, then it's probably starts to be quite a useful tool.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I think semantic search using time-based metadata is absolutely a use case. I think there's a lot of use cases around compliance. So, for example, there are some territories where you can't show alcohol in shot in dramas. There
Yeah.
are there's all kinds of compliance stuff where you might just be able to pick out those clips and do the right do the right edits at the right moment. Um, so lots of possibilities there, and I think, and there's many more too. But I'm already trying, I'm already seeing with what I'm talking about that one of the big challenges is how we build those things into real workflows. Because actually, the tools that people use in these workflows today, they're not going to be able to make use of AI
Yeah.
because they're not built for that. They're tools where people download files and push them about on networks, or use NASes, and they use software which I mean, like software that might have an AI plugin, but the IT department hasn't approved it or whatever. So there's all this kind of detritus that goes with actually making this function as a
Yeah. Yeah.
workflow. And it comes back to this idea of cloud native, because actually, if you've got a cloud native workflow, by which of course we mean it's not just plonked old fashioned software in the cloud, but you've actually constructed your workflow, maybe in line with the Movie Labs 2030 vision and all of those sorts of things, and you've got a cloud native workflow of some sort, then it's much easier to adapt that and adjust that and build in new tools like AI type tools,
Yeah.
for example.
In fact, I can remember one of your cloud native media nights was talking about open source. So where do
Mhm.
we think we're headed in terms of AI and proprietary and open source? Who's going to win out? Which way is it going?
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? I don't know. I
Yeah,
hadn't considered that. I mean, I think the really big push we've got at the moment with open source is to get open source interoperability on media workflows so that we can plug AI in where it's needed. So it's that idea that 20 years ago you probably had an SDI cable and you could buy kit from any vendor and you could plug your SDI cable into it and you had a reasonable degree of confidence it was going to work.
yeah,
And one of the challenges we've got with software-based workflows, and we talk about cloud, but really what we're talking about software-based workflows, whether they're cloud or not cloud, that you need a way to plug them together that's a sort of similar standard to how we would do with SDI. And that is only really now starting to emerge with projects like the EBU's DMF, for example.
yeah,
Um, so we're then starting to see this sort of interoperable ecosystem, and those open standards, I think, are really important to enabling that next wave of improvement that can then include AI. Because
yeah.
without that interoperability, we don't have we're then boxed. We're all boxed into single vendor ecosystems. If none of
Exactly.
the different vendor tools can actually talk to each other.
Yeah,
So these open standards are absolutely critical to both more effective use of cloud
yeah,
and software, and to building AI tools effectively. Again, it's that word effective. You've got to be effective about it. Just sprinkling a bit of AI on the top
yeah,
um, then tends not to be much use. You've got to really think about it effectively.
yeah. Are you full tilt then, Paul? Are you glass half full sort of guy going into the future with all this AI stuff?
Um, I mean, I think so, just because I mean, there's so much doom and negativity out there about AI, isn't there?
Yeah,
And um, and the thing is, if that's all true, we might as well just all give up.
just give up now, right?
And I think so. But then I see use cases. So there's a company called Synapse, which I always bring up as a great use of AI because and it's a pun. So it's Synapse like the brain thing, but it's sign as in signing apps.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
yeah. So, but what they've done is they've trained, they've used real signers to train avatars to do British Sign Language, and the brilliant thing about it is that they can feed any live content to their system and overlay an avatar signing it in BSL, and
yeah,
I love it so much because. Um, it really kind of belies the AI doom a little bit because it kind of
yeah,
says, actually, look, there's a group of people here whose native language is sign language, right? They understand the world in terms of sign language. Yes, they can read, but that's a second language to them, if you like, right?
yeah,
And and what you can do with this technology is that you can put signing on any content, right?
yeah,
And that can include live content, by the way. So these people now get access to live sports on a scale that they've never had access to before. And yes,
yeah,
of course, you could do this with human signers, and we do, right? That's something that does happen. That's something we've done in for the BBC and Channel 4 for years. But there's only so many of them, right? And there is a cost involved. I mean, signing is a massive operation. You need a studio. You need to find a sign language interpreter. Either one who is a hearing interpreter who could listen, but then they're again, signing's not their native language, so they
yeah,
they they aren't as good as a native signer. And one of the things we did at Red Bee was we enabled we through the use of subtitling we could actually allow a native deaf signer to be able to sign for news content, for example, and other content, which was a very popular feature, right? So you could have they'd be fed the live subtitles, and the
yeah,
deaf signer would um, sign them for the signing first community. So that was great. But the thing is with this Synapse product is that you can do all of that on such scale, and
yeah.
and you don't have to. So there is a cost, but then there's also just there just aren't enough of them to be able to do it
It's the
on that scale,
productivity
right?
gains, right?
They just don't exist.
It's
Yeah. So I mean,
unlocking
it
all.
wouldn't be.
Yeah,
It just wouldn't be possible, right? To
yeah,
do it. That's the beautiful thing about it is you're actually enabling something that's not only more cost effective, but it wouldn't be possible at all.
Yeah.
So and it gives a community, a small community, but nevertheless an important community. It gives them access to things that they never had access to before, real time coverage of live sports, for example.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like a subject close to your heart from the years you've worked in access services,
Of
Paul?
course, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it's absolutely exciting to be able to talk about that and say, well, actually, this is a great use of AI, isn't it? Because we're
yeah,
actually we're making the world a better place. And there's other examples that outside media, things like the medical applications and what have you. And look, that's not to say that people won't use AI for bad things. Of course they will. I mean, I think that kind of goes for everything, doesn't it? I mean, you've got
oh yeah,
bad actors using all kinds of tech for bad things. And I do remember a quote that I heard last year somewhere, which somebody said, and I'd love to remember who it was because I'd love to credit them. But somebody said AI is like steel. I mean, you can use it to make life-saving equipment, or you can use it to make bombs. I mean, it's kind of up to you. So
yeah,
when we say glass half full, it's like, well, let's be real about this. AI is a massive tool. It's something that we can all make use of, and if you leave it to all of the bad people to make use of it, then yeah, the future's going to be awful. So don't leave it to all the bad people. Actually, pick it up and make good use of it, right?
the,
That's got to
absolutely.
be the message, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, completely. And yeah, it sounds like what's next with cloud native media? Anything in the pipeline, Paul?
I think we've got a well. I'm working on an AI themed event. We did one last year, but I think we're going to do another one soon. There's also a Christmas event coming up, which I need to talk to my co-sponsors and unveil quite soon. So that will be coming up. I think we're working with some other parties for an event in February that sounds quite interesting as well. So we're talking about collaborations and whatnot at the moment, and so there's not much more I can say, Ben. But
Okay.
watch this space, follow the group, join the group, follow on LinkedIn and everywhere else if you're not already, and we will definitely be sharing some news about the things we're going to be doing in 2026.
Oh, yeah, a bit of a teaser. It's been great having you on the show again. And yeah, I'll put Paul's cloud native media links and stuff in the description. Thanks, Paul.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. It's been awesome. Thank you very much. Speak soon.
Thanks for listening to Reinventing Broadcast. Subscribe for more on AI content and the future of media. And visit ancast.tv for more info on Ben himself, the resources, other content, and news.